the author of a book called The Bush Agenda, Invading the World One Economy at a Time, and another book called The Tyranny of Oil, the world's most powerful industry and what we must do to stop it. And I've been here to participate in the March 4th, Marching Forward, and to bring all of this amazing activity here to you. I work with a group called Oil Change International and another called the Institute for Policy Studies. And we're all here committed to making sure that in this critical moment in U.S. history, when we are engaged in 2 wars, when we are on the verge of another war in Iran, when we are facing one of the most critical elections in our history, that the issues that are of most paramount importance listed here: sustainable energy, food and commerce, government transparency, truth and accountability, democracy and election integrity, and the list goes on. Peace, an end to the war, dealing with the climate crisis, dealing with real global economic equality, that these issues are front and central in the campaign. And what's core in the elections is that you, the students, you, the community of this city, the community of this nation, are able to get these issues front and center through organizing, through education, through issue building. That no change has ever come, ever, from an election alone. No change has ever come, ever, from an individual elected official alone. Change only ever comes, period, from movements, from people organizing, from taking all of this energy of those of you who are Obama supporters, taking this energy of the millions and millions of people organizing, and not having it be about one man, not having it be about the potential of one elected official, but rather having it be about what comes the day after the election. What happens next? How does the change actually come to be? If you are someone who wants to end the war, what is in fact being talked about in this election which will guarantee an end to the war? Is anyone saying anything, in fact, that has anything to do with an actual concrete plan for how the war will be ended? And if they're not, what are we doing to ensure that that stated goal is front and center, that that objective happens? What are we doing to turn a discussion in the public and the mainstream media about ending the war into something that is actually tangible and moves forward and takes shape? The trainings that we're going to be doing are going to be part of that. How to train ourselves and train others to make sure that these messages come across. I cannot stress enough the critical nature of where we stand right now. Just yesterday, so many things happened. The USS Cole just pulled up on the shores of Lebanon. Iran was just accused yet again with even further sanctions at the United Nations for having a legal process as part of what is being presumed to be a nuclear weapons program. This happened yesterday. 5 corporations came close to sealing the deal with Iraqi oil: Exxon, Chevron, Conoco, Total, BP, Shell. If they sign those contracts in Iraq, it's the start of a real goal in Iraq, which is 20-year-long contracts for owning Iraqi oil. If they own that oil, if they sign those contracts, we are in Iraq militarily for 30 years. And that's it, it's the end game. The United States has set up a naval facility that sits right on the port where Iraqi oil is exported out of Iraq. It just also happens to be the Iraq-Iranian border. So we now have a permanent naval facility sitting, guarding Iraqi oil, looking out over the shore to Iran. A permanent facility. We are at the heart of the most critical moments and critical choices. If we lock ourselves into an oil future, Hurricanes Katrina and Rita and the impacts on our population that those wrought are going to seem like small potatoes very, very soon. Our climate cannot take the future that is being built. Our climate cannot take a commitment to business as usual. Behind us is a Pentagon puppet, which lists all of the corporations behind the war, the corporations that are being supported by and benefiting off and driving the war. And these include companies that were given the task of rebuilding Iraq, the Bechtels, the Parsons, the Shaws, the Perinis, that were supposed to rebuild hospitals, electricity, water. How many people know that before the war, Baghdad had 24 hours a day of electricity, to now, today, Baghdad has 2 to 4 hours of electricity a day. Electricity controls water. There's no clean water without the electricity. Electricity controls sewage. The sewage cannot leave and be cleaned unless there is electricity. Electricity is what's run in hospitals to make sure hospitals function. And this is a country in the middle of a war and an occupation that doesn't have electricity. Why? Because the Bechtel Corporation and the Shah Corporation, the Perini Corporation, took our money and ran and left. And that's the circumstance we're facing. The other corporations listed on there, Chevron, Exxon, Conoco, the corporations that are still poised to be the winners, the corporations that are funding, of our 2 candidates left in the Democratic race, Hillary Clinton gained the big support from the oil corporations. Why? Because at best, her plan for Iraq gets us out in maybe 3 years, more likely 8 and probably longer. And what is her talk about Iran like? She's a hawk about Iran. What does Iran have? Iran has, after Iraq, before Iraq, the 2nd largest oil reserves in the world. Iraq, the 3rd largest oil reserves in the world. Reserves that oil corporations are hungry and planning to get their hands into. These are the issues that we're confronting in this election. These are the issues that you, particularly the students, are going to be locked into for the foreseeable future. Unless we turn this election into an opportunity for raising the most critical, the most powerful issues and embracing our ability to be activists, to be organizers, to be change magnets in the real way, to embrace this idea of hope. The country is desperate for hope, for change, for a promise of change. And the only thing that brings that is movements, is us moving into that space and saying, that's right, we're here to bring change. We're here to ensure the bases of democracy in the United States, that they function. And that is dependent upon us and our organizing and our spirit and our information and our holding these candidates to the truth of their message. If Barack Obama says that he doesn't think NAFTA is a good idea, and he's playing off of the organizing that many here have been critically a part of, the protests in Seattle in 1999 against the World Trade Organization, against the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, organizing that has led to massive radical transformations of governments across Venezuela, Brazil, Ecuador, Bolivia. So now the Democratic candidates are saying, and this is critically important, there is something very broken about our free trade policy. Very true. Very important that they're saying this. But what they're missing is step 2. What is the difference that they're proposing? How do we fix a very broken system that has led, I would argue, to the recession that we are now in, the massive recession that we're suffering, those failed policies? That's where we come in. We have to ask the next question. Barack Obama, what do you do next? Is a kinder, gentler free trade what we've all been organizing for and getting arrested for and shutting down meetings for and succeeding? The WTO is nearly dead as an institution. The World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, stifled only because of organizing and resistance. Does that then have a curtain dropped on it because Barack Obama becomes president? No. Our job is to carry this organizing, this message forward, and to do it in a time when the whole world is watching, when our power is in fact at its height, and our movements do have the ability to make massive, massive change.